Why, hello. It's your girl, Gabrielle. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. If you are new to the show, let me tell you what this show is about. So, this is the show where we like to have real talk about, excuse me. We like to have real talk about real things. We tend to focus on certain topics within our purview. We tend to focus on education, entrepreneurship, empowerment. We've done episodes about bullying, what else? Disabilities. We've done episodes about ADHD. What else? We've done plenty of episodes. We've done plenty of episodes. It's all a blur after a while. But so we've done plenty of episodes, and today is no different. So I have a repeat topic today. I love it when I bring back topics because it allows us to explore one topic using multiple perspectives. So I love it when we bring back a topic. So my repeat topic for today is resiliency, but this is resiliency part 4, right? So this is the 4th time that we are tackling this topic of resiliency, and I have a brave soul who is going to get on the hot seat, who is going to tackle this topic with me. Her name is Andrea Augustus, and let me just tell you about her briefly. Oh, I just gotta pull up her bio for a second. I thought I had it. Give me one second. Okay, there it is. Get myself together. All right, so Andrea Augustus is an educational entrepreneur with more than 5 years of experience as a teaching artist, and she is the founder of her company, Poetic Black Gurl LLC. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring her to the stage. Hi, Andrea. How are you doing today?
I'm really good. How are you? How are you feeling?
Good. Feeling good. Feeling good. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for doing this. I
Yes,
know
I'm
it's
really
been a
excited
long
to be
time
here.
coming. It's been a long time coming, but I finally got you.
Yes, yes, I'm excited.
All right. So the topic is resiliency. You have a fabulous story, and I want the audience to hear it. So I'm going to hand over the baton to you and go ahead, tell us your story.
Of course, sure. Um, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, that's me, Andrea Augustus, the founder of Poetic Black Gurl LLC, which sounds really cool, really impressive, but really before I ever got to the space of working in education or having a business, it was a road. It was quite the time. Um, Growing up, I was more, I want to say, recluse and quiet, and definitely didn't have a whole lot of friends. But school was always what I was able to lean on. I was one of the people like I really like going to school. I really like learning stuff, and I especially like um, doing presentations and things like that. So the educators around me noticed that from early age and really were able to pour into that. So, school was really, really good. It was a place where I enjoyed going to learn until I got into college. That's what I say. I'm like, school was great. I was busting it out the court, it was cool until I got to college. Like a lot of other people, it was a big deal for my high school's numbers when it came to pushing us into a college, but that actual support when it came to that transition wasn't as strong as I would have liked. So I was pretty all of that to say I went from a really diverse environment, high school, middle school, all that, into a predominantly white institution, um, being pretty far from my home for somebody who doesn't drive, um, in a Catholic school, as a non-religious person. And I remember having a dorm room and looking outside of my dorm room window and seeing a graveyard and thinking to myself, like, this is eerie. Like, I don't know if I was really ready for that. So, um, I went through quite a time, quite a depressive state, from feeling really isolated and feeling really alone. I was looking up around myself, and I didn't really see much diversity in my peers and in my classes. And I definitely didn't see anybody who I could relate to. And not to mention, I caught myself, having a boyfriend at this school. And it was a very young and very immature relationship. So that was also something that was, just draining. I remember arguing over the smallest things and wanting to get up and go to class, but not having the motivation or the desire, or I just remember feeling so tired all the time. I was super depressed. I was so tired, finding it so hard to just get up and do things. Um, and I was also beginning to experience anxiety attacks. So, walking down the hallway and just like hyperventilating, like not really being able to self-soothe and be present. So, all of that led me to really decide to put things on hold. And I ended up dropping out of college. So I went from, really, really enjoying education and really enjoying school to, going to this place where I was supposed to be discovering myself and having the time of my life, and where my parents were working so hard to push me in order to start a career. And I remember just feeling this heavy sense of fulfillment and disappointment inside of myself. I just felt so disappointed. I felt like I was disappointing my parents. I felt like I was disappointing all of my past educators who, always said, "Oh, you're going to do so great in university." I felt like I was disappointing myself, but I knew that if I stayed there, I would continue to be in a really depressive state. So I ended up packing up my things and coming back home to the city, right? I was in a different part of New York. I wasn't really in the city. Like, if you're a New Yorker, we consider New York City New York. Once you kind of get to the counties, we don't really call that New York, right? So I came back home to New York City, and I remember, scrolling on Instagram and seeing my friends like really finishing up their year strong, celebrating themselves, celebrating one another. And at this point, I was in the city working as a restaurant host, seating people at a Mexican, Southern fusion spot, smelling like chicken, and just feeling like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know, because this isn't it. This isn't giving what I wanted to give. So it was around this time that I started to really dive more deeply into my love of the arts. So I've always been an artist. From third grade, I was in my art class, just really, really going off. I was drawing pictures of Frida Kahlo. I was getting texture in wood, and while everybody else was playing with their crayons, I just really took an interest in the arts. Um, and that was visual arts. And I also had a strong passion for literary arts. I was a big reader. I remember reading these dense chapter books when I was in the third grade, and being put into, different classes to read more challenging material. So during this time when I'm back in New York and I'm feeling like I don't know what to do, really hopeless and just disappointed and kind of lost, I found solace in arts again. So I began writing a lot. And I was really, it started as writing like just regular journal entries detailing how I felt, to these spoken word poems. And I began, memorizing these spoken word poems and going to different places like the New Eurekan Poets Cafe and different open mic events, different poetry events. and reciting these poems and performing spoken word pieces. And I remember the feeling after I performed for the first time during this period, and it was like, oh, so this is what I needed to do in order to feel better. Like I needed to release. And I know a lot of people go to therapy in order to release, but for me, I've always found therapy in the artistic community and on a stage after I'm able to, share a piece of work. So I did that for a while. I was just writing and performing and meeting so many amazing souls. I was meeting people who sang. I was meeting people who rapped. I was meeting people who painted. I was meeting people who sculpted. I was meeting people who were educators, and they really were able to kind of replicate that feeling of nourishment and fulfillment that I felt back when I was in high school and in middle school, and I was in love with education. So in that way, I was able to fall in love with the artistic community and poetry more. And I was remember sitting back to myself and I was like, okay, so I'm working in restaurants, and this isn't really it. I really love education and the arts, and I see how the arts have helped me come out of a depression into being more of myself. I really found a lot of confidence through performing and friendship, and I wanted to explore something that would allow me to introduce other people to that same path of healing, the healing that I went through using the arts, using poetry, and being in the artistic community. So it was at this time, this was around 2018, that I decided to go back to college to study art education and art therapy. I was like, you know what? If the art could heal me, and what I was going through, the arts can heal so many other people, and I want to be a kind of a pathway for somebody to learn how to do that. Please excuse the noise in the background. We in New York. It's New York City for real. So yes, I decided at this point to go to the College of New Rochelle, and I was double majoring in art education and art therapy. And when I tell you, I felt like I found home as soon as I entered every arts classroom. Like the program was amazing. We had classes where we were sculpting with wire and really getting into deep concepts. I remember sculpting the female form out of wire. We had other assignments where we were making self portraits, and I remember making a giant poster portrait. Check it, check it. It was of me merged with my cat, right? It was supposed to be some taking yourself and twisting it into an expressionistic way that represents what you love and the different things in your life. So it was very like galaxy, yes, and there's deep purples and pinks and blues, and it's splattered with scars, and then it's like my face, and then the cat's body, and then a little bit more. It was awesome, and I felt like this is cool. Like I'm in school studying this and doing this and getting graded for this. This is great, and it was so awesome. Now, I will say my commute was kind of crazy at this time, right? Because I'm from the Bronx, and the school I went to was in New Rochelle. Now, if you drive, not crazy, maybe 15, 20 minutes, right? But if you don't drive, if you are a true New Yorker and you just hop on the metro, you got your metro card and you dip that thing or you swipe that thing, then something that is a 15-minute drive is can go up to be an hour and a half commute. Now, I was traveling, I was traveling from the Bronx to New Rochelle as a commuter, an hour and a half to school, and then an hour and a half back home. And I was there all day long, sometimes long gaps in between my classes. But at the end of each day, I felt so fulfilled and like I was doing something that I needed to do. So it was a really great feeling, and I was really so into it. And then one day the ball just dropped. Like, they say the other shoe dropped, like everything just kind of like collapsed momentarily. I remember looking through my email, and this whole day there was such like a dark, eerie feeling over the campus, and I didn't know what it was. It kind of reminded me of so I was in my first college when Donald Trump got elected for president. And I remember the day after Donald Trump got elected, it was just like a really somber and like dark feeling over the POC students in the campus. And it was super similar to that at this new university on this day. So I check in my email, and there's a notification saying that the College of New Rochelle, the school I was attending, was actually going bankrupt because of embezzlement. And I was like, well, this is crazy. I was having the time of my life. What do I do now? And I don't know if anybody else has ever felt that feeling when it's like, okay, the thing that I didn't expect to happen at all just happened. And now what do I do? Right. And then you sit back and kind of think and sort through your options. So for me, it was kind of like a two options. It was we go into a depressive state and kind of wallow in what's happening as we process the fact that no other school in this area has a double major program where you can do art education and art therapy, and now we're at square one. So it was, do I wallow in that, or do I do something else? And the something else would really be what comes natural and what's been what had helped me up to that point, which is just create more art independently, regardless of having educational institution backing me up or not. So, and what that looked like for me was, instead of going back into that depressive state, I kind of just went home that day and wrote some more poetry to process my feelings, and went back into the artistic community and continue doing what I was going to do. So now I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm at square one, right? Because we grow through everything. We kind of, that's my saying, we go through nothing and we grow through everything. We grow through everything. There's always a lesson. So not necessarily at square one. I'm more so at, like, let's call it like square 2.5, right? So I'm at square 2.5, and I'm figuring out what I want my next steps to be outside of just, writing poetry and performing poetry. And I go ahead and just do some research and figure out where I can go now to pursue art and education. So I ended up applying to Lehman College, and um, thankfully CUNY had a kind of like a deal with the college that went bankrupt, where they had to accept a certain amount of those students. Um, Something with contracts, and if you bring students in and promise them these credits and this degree, and you break that contract, now you have to help them get into other schools where with people who can fulfill that contract, pretty much. So I kind of just got into CUNY at Lehman, and that was cool. It was great. I was able to study arts and take other classes, but honestly, it just did not compare to the art program at New Rochelle. It just really feel the difference. So I was there taking these classes, and then the pandemic hit. So then the pandemic hit and school shut down, and I was like, oh, I think maybe the universe is trying to tell me something. I think the universe might be trying to tell me that I'm not meant to be an educator or an artist the way everybody else is, or a traditional path might not be the path for me. Because the last few institutions I went to, it's like something just major, random. I don't want to say randomly happened, but something major happened and kind of shifted my perspective in my course. So it was around this time that I decided to curate a Poetic Black Gurl LLC as an independent teaching artist. So in 2020, I went ahead and incorporated my business. And from that point, I designed a custom line of journals with the intent to encourage more people to write through their traumas, through their issues, similar to what I experienced. And the idea is that if there's a journal cover that really speaks to you and that you really resonate with, you'll be more inclined to write your thoughts and process inside of that journal. And based on that, I began to create programs to instruct to students about mental health, wellness, and the arts. So that's kind of like a overview of of what I went through.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and listening to you. You've definitely had your ups and downs and disappointments and moments of depression. So as I was listening to you, there was a common thread, which was there were these forces that happened outside of you that kind of changed the direction of your life, right? So you brought up New Rochelle went bankrupt and then the pandemic. So what was it like? No, and then before you said you dropped out of school?
Yeah, initially I dropped out mental health. I was predominantly white institution, man. That was different.
So that was with you were in an environment that culturally didn't jive with you, right?
Yeah.
So tell me what goes through your mind as you reflect on all these things. So you had at least three instances where you had these forces that happened outside of you that just changed the trajectory of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I remember being how old was I? When I went to college, I was 17 years old. So I remember feeling this intense just hopelessness. I remember feeling so, so, so hopeless and also like, okay, but nobody's really here to walk me through it. So I think a part of what I was going through was really just maturing as an adult. I don't think we really know what it's like to uh, really become an adult. It's just like one day you're here, and it's your practices and different things that you put into place and how you're able to respond to things that really determine how mature you are and how much of an adult you were. And I remember being 17 and going through really just the isolation and the depression and the anxiety. And in my family, going to college meant that you are now an adult. So I remember feeling like, well, I'm an adult now, and I need to figure it out. So oftentimes, when I was going through this at this initial university, it was an extreme feeling of overwhelm followed by really intense calm. Like, okay, this is what we have to do now. When I went to the College of New Rochelle and I found out that they were closing the university down and that being out of my control in my mind, I was like, wow, overwhelmed, and then calm. So it's really been a kind of a mental thing of being able to absorb information, because honestly we
Yeah.
can't control anything that goes on outside of us, right? We can only sit back and absorb what's going on and inside of ourselves, process what this means for us and what the appropriate next steps would be. So I remember during these times, this is when I really learned how to process. That was my biggest takeaway of experiencing things that just come at you from like different angles, figuring out how to absorb it and then process in a way that makes sense. And for me, the processing has always been easier when I sit down and write it down. So it's been a lot of okay, overwhelm and then calm as I process and figure out what the next best steps would be, and really trying to make sure that those next best steps are in alignment with who I am and what I want to do. Because I like to think that the reason, that everything happens for a reason. And the reason things didn't work out at my first university is because God, the universe, whatever you believe in, had something much better planned for me somewhere else. Like
Yeah.
somebody really needed to hear me say something to them in another space, and it wasn't them over there. So God was like, go over there because they're the ones that really need to hear it. So I think it's been a lot of that, a lot of just redirecting, but also like me being in the right path the whole time, if that kind of makes sense. And I think it's the same for a lot of other people sometimes, because we all go through things where it's like, oh, had no control of this, but now I'm here, and now this is what I need to do. And we're facing these challenging situations, and we may feel like we're backed against a wall, and we just, that overwhelm and then that calm as we process, and we're able to kind of get back on path, and it's our like divine path. So that overwhelm was what was going through my mind, but then the ability to process is what came out on the other side, which is great.
Yeah, yeah. And I hear when you say you have these feelings of overwhelm and then calm, right? So you feel overwhelmed and then you process and then you feel calm, right? So tell us more about the process. When you say when you process, what does that mean to you? Describe that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I say processing things, it's really the ability to sit back and take inventory of everything that's going on. So, for example, when I was at my initial university, where I was studying psychology because I wanted to be a family and relationship therapist. That's where it started. I wanted to be a family and relationship therapist. So I remember me knowing that I wanted to help people, and yet being in a predicament where I felt 100% helpless. And that helplessness led to that overwhelm, and that overwhelm led to that processing. So I was taking inventory of everything that I was going through and everything that I had. So, kind of like me writing down a list was the easiest way for me to do it. For me to process, and it's something I even recommend some of my students do when they're feeling overwhelmed, making a list of how they feel and what's going on so they could visually see it. So for me, what my list looked like was, number one, I'm depressed, right? Just get that out the way. Number two, I'm anxious. Number three, I'm away from home. Number four, my mama's cooking in here and they ain't doing it in the kitchen. Number five, this coursework is intimidating and hard. Number six, I'm tired all the time. Number seven, I'm getting into fights with my boyfriend all the time. Number eight, I want to leave. Number nine, maybe I should leave. So the processing was me really being able to work through my feelings and take it from being like intense emotion, intense emotion, intense emotion to, okay, I have this list of paper where I can see exactly what I'm going through and make a decision from there. So after getting down kind of all the negative, right, all the crap on a piece of paper, from there I'm able to look at that and say, so is staying here going to be the best thing, or is leaving going to be better for your overall well-being? And sometimes, for me, leaving was a better thing to do, but other times for people, maybe staying is the better thing. Maybe an uncomfortable growth period that we need to go through. Maybe there's a way that you can, get some. Maybe I could have asked my mama to come through and bring me some food, right? Maybe I could have found a therapist on campus, right? So really being able to take inventory of what you're going through, like the things that are in your control, the things that are out of your control, and then trying to make that best decision based on it. And yeah, it is a learning process, it's never perfect the first time. We might think one thing is good for us, and then later down the line, we'll be like, man, maybe we should have done something else. But I think when it comes to processing, being able to get those things down on paper, like really being, because I'm a writer and a poet at heart, right? So being able to get these things down where we can see them, and we could kind of read our own life story and like read what we're going through, can really almost like kind of open doors sometimes and change our perspective. And you might find that you're like, oh, this is clearly what I need to do because I read this and I see this, and it looks like this is like what makes the most sense.
Right. So I think, what you described is an actual counseling strategy, right? So to actually, those thoughts that come into your head and those feelings that you have, to put them down on paper, and then, kind of ignore for like 20-30 minutes, and then come back and you actually read what you wrote down. So what you're talking about is an actual strategy that counselors, have their patients do. So in writing that down, because you are using one of your strengths, like you said, when you write it down. So tell me, like, after you read these thoughts that you have in your head about the fighting with the boyfriend and the school and all these things that you're listing, do they still have the same effect on you after you read them as they did before? Did it change? Did it have the same effect?
Yeah, yeah. I think I don't know if anybody has ever heard like somebody say, name that thing, name the thing that is weighing on you so that we could take power away from it, right? Name that. I feel like in writing it down and reading it back, I was able to kind of like name that thing and like take my power back from it. So thank and it does depend, like it's kind of like circumstantial, because I remember like the issues that I was having with my partner at the time were just so horrible that there's still to this day, like I'll read back certain journal entries that I was writing when I was like in the thick of that, and it's still like painful to me because it triggers those intense emotions of just I being manipulated and being lied to, and feeling in a constant fight or flight type of situation. But I also could look back and read different journal entries about, how I was feeling sad or how I was feeling anxious. And those don't have as strong of a feeling attached to it. But generally, I think the like before writing down the things that I was going through, when they was just in my head and it was kind of convoluted and it didn't really make any sense, and I just had that intense feeling, compared to after I was able to write everything down and then kind of like read through it like, oh girl, so this is what we're going through, it kind of it really it feels better afterwards. It feels better to get it out, especially when we're in spaces where we might not feel like we have somebody to talk to. So I know I felt very isolated. I didn't feel like I had anybody to talk to. So it's almost like a letter to yourself and a conversation with yourself. And after having a conversation with yourself, you're able to, it's almost self-soothing in a way. So yeah, thankfully, after the writing and processing in that way, it does lead me and hopefully so many others in the journaling community to feel better and feel more empowered and feel like, okay, I have clarity. I have clarity now.
Awesome, awesome. So now, as you were going through all these things, I'm wondering, like, what did your parents think of, all because you went to 3 different schools, it sounds
Mm-hmm.
like. So,
Yeah.
you know, what did your parents think of all this?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So
Mhm.
my parents, they initially, oh, they did not want me to. They did not want me to um, go to a university because my boyfriend was going to that university. Um, Understandably so. So I ended up going to the same college as my high school boyfriend, who was just not the best partner at the time. And my parents were so livid about it. They almost didn't want me to go to the same university as him, like, and I mean, like, almost like, oh no, girl, like, we're not gonna take your stuff out the car if he's going to be here, type stuff, right? But at this point, paperwork is already signed. I think I'm gonna live my best life, so you know that that was that. And then when I came home, I don't think my parents told me that they were disappointed, but I felt so disappointed in myself because I knew that my whole life they were working towards this goal of having all of us go to university and, study something. Academia was really important. I come from a family where my mom, she didn't finish college, and my dad, he did finish college, but he ended up in a career where he didn't necessarily have to use his college education. So they definitely wanted me to be in college and use education as a form of leverage to do so I don't have to work manually hard. My dad was a construction worker, so he wanted me to do something where I'm able to use work smarter, not necessarily harder. And when I came back home, like, my parents are very supportive, thankfully. I know they gave me a hard time about going to the same college as my high school boyfriend, but they are very like supportive. And they had after they realized that's where I was, they were like, okay, well, we're just going to see how this pans out, and we can't force her to do anything. She's going to do what she wants to do now. She's out of the house. So when I came back home, it wasn't really a shutout. They welcomed me back home with very open arms and a lot of love and support, which was really, really something that I appreciated, because I know so many other people whose parents would have either told them to, you can't come back if you're not going to be in college at all or working, because it took me a while to get into the job force because I was pretty much coming right out of college with minimal working experience. So there's so many people whose parents would have been like, you can't stay here, you have to figure it out. Or they would have, let them come back, but also, maybe complained about it to them all the time or just gave them a really hard time. But thankfully, my parents have always been really supportive of me. And they were just like, okay, well, you're going to figure it out, and you're figuring it out. And yeah, so they were really happy when I ended up going back to college to study art education and art therapy, because I think it gave them that sense of security, like, yeah, she's figuring it out, this is cool. And I was happy too. And then when the college went bankrupt, I think they were just in like kind of like shock, like, what, colleges go bankrupt? And I was like, yeah, apparently they do, right? And still just so much love, so much support as I figured out the next things to do. And then the next thing happened to be Lehman College, and they were, at this point they were kind of just like, yeah, she's gonna figure it out, and like, she got this. She be changing schools. She be doing a lot. She got this. So at this point, they were pretty chill about it. And then when the pandemic happened and I was kind of like displaced and I wasn't in school anymore. And I, told them that I was creating my own business. At first, they were kind of skeptical, because I think when you tell people that you're going to start your own business, we're in such a culture where uh, the pathway, the most obvious pathway to success and financial security is to get a high paying position at somebody else's business, not necessarily to create your own business and get a high paying position that way. So I know there was a lot of like, you want to do what now? And I was like, yeah, like I'm going to start my own business where I'm kind of able to set my own hours and still impact students and encourage people to write and use the arts. And they were like, well, how are you going to do that? And it took a lot of back and forth conversation, I guess, because um, I'm not a traditional educator since I didn't finish college. I'm a non-traditional educator. I do subcontracting under other companies, and now I'm a vendor with the DOE, but as an artist. So it's a lot, it's really different than, going to school and getting an undergraduate degree and then getting a master's and, becoming a teacher that way. So it took a lot of explaining because they're like, wait, but you didn't finish. And I'm like, no, I know, but there's ways. So it definitely just took like a lot of, back and forth conversation. And sometimes I still, when you tell somebody what you do, but they don't really know what you do, sometimes I still think they don't know what I do, but they know I do it. So, so it's been okay. It's been good.
So now it sounds like you're just focused on your business, right? So you don't have any intentions of going back to school.
No. At this point, I decided that it's not really worth it for me. And it seems like the universe has been telling me to just create my own path. At least for the time being, I'm always in like online courses, learning more about poetry and learning more about arts therapy, but I'm not enrolled as a part-time or a full-time student. I just take courses on like Coursera and other platforms, but they are taught by professors from accredited universities, but I'm not getting credits necessarily for finishing them, which is good for me because I'm able to still learn. That was my favorite part about school, being able to learn, but also it takes the pressure off and I don't have to pay as much for it, so that's cool.
Awesome. So now I want to make sure we talk about this. So obviously in your processing, you turn to the arts, right? You turn to poetry, you turn to, so was it just poetry or was it like drawing
Yeah.
and it was just
Yeah.
poetry?
No, it was a few different types of arts. I when I was in high school, I was doing a lot of painting. I actually had this really cool paint project where they said we could go into the hallways of our high school and create art um, that meant something. And I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I ended up choosing water fountains. Those were the places in the school where I wanted to create art. And under the water fountains, I made like a paintings that looked like you could see the reservoir, like the reserve of where the water was actually coming from. So just like these deep blue swirls from under the water fountain. So people are coming and drinking the water, and you just see it's just like so abstract and poppy. So yeah, I have a deep love of like the arts in its entirety, visual arts, mainly abstract visual arts, and poetry, like spoken word poetry, but also written poetry. I think of a lot of things as art forms, like even yoga, like a movement art, singing as a auditory art. So the arts in general is so healing and just so helpful to students. So yes.
Yeah, yeah. So you know, as a way to process all these different emotions and thoughts that you were having, you turn to poetry, you turn to the arts. So tell us about the value of arts, the value of arts in education, the value of arts as a vessel, to
Yeah.
youth. So, tell us the
Yeah.
value of arts, because there seems to be an attack
Yes.
on arts in schools. So,
Yes.
tell us about the value of arts and education and just the arts in general.
Yes, of course, of course. I love this question because I feel like so many people need to ask it more. I
Yeah.
despise the fact that when budgets get cut in schools, the first program that they look to without hesitation is the arts department. And the reason that I despise it is because studies have proven that students that are in extracurriculars like sports and arts programs tend to do better in their core classes. Like if you get a student a space to process some of their emotions in art, when they get to their math class, they're actually able to focus on the formulas and the equations. And when they get to social studies, they have enough, they've dimmed the internal chatter so much that they can actually absorb the stories that their educator is telling them. So and same with sports. When you get them outside and they could get some of that fidgety energy out, by the time they get to English, they're really able to sit down and do the writing activity that they're supposed to do. So yeah, the arts is one of those things, and it's proven that an hour of arts decreases cortisol, which is the stress hormone in humans' bodies. And even after the Sandy Hook shootings, they took some of those students and put them into art therapy programming to help them with the PTSD, because the act of creating something, it builds so much strength inside of ourselves. Like when you're doing a painting and it might not be necessarily coming out how you want it to come out, but you allow yourself to mix new colors and slather them on the paper and erase what you just did, or make new strokes. You're able to practice forgiving yourself. You're able to practice being resilient. You're able to practice expressing yourself in different ways. Like when you choose certain colors, it's like thinking about, like, why did I choose these colors? Like, how do these colors represent me? And you're able to be really introspective about what you're going through. And that's just the visual arts, right? Then when we get students right in and they're doing the literary arts, they're able to clearly express how they're feeling. And oftentimes in schools, what we see is that there's a very heavy emphasis on testing and numbers and doing well, which is understandable, because principals want budgets for their schools so that they can continue to provide resources for their students. But the stress that all of this hyper academia pressure, hyper academic pressure has on students definitely takes a toll on them. So having spaces where students can have these outlets creatively to paint or to draw or to listen to music or to dance or to do yoga or to do whatever, to sing, what they need to do, right? When they have these spaces to do what they need to do, by the time they get to their other classes, they're more centered, grounded. It really reduces absenteeism, because we definitely all have like seen the student that's in the class, right? But they're not
Yeah.
really in class. They're not there. Their head is down, they looking out the window, So is yes, the arts, even for educators, like if there's artistic PDs for educators to help reground and recenter, kind of, take away from the pressure of lesson planning and stuff like that. It's so beneficial. It's so beneficial. That's why art therapy is a whole practice. Okay, my rant is done.
Beautiful. And on that note, let's
Right.
wind it down. So now, do you have any final words of wisdom that you would like to share with our audience?
Oh yes, sure, 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 sure. I even have a poem if I have a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Oh
Let me
my
get
gosh,
you
this is
full
great. I wrote it a little while ago. I have it written in case, just in case, right? If I had to write a love letter to my legacy, it would begin with struggle. It would start many moons ago on an entirely different continent where someone is stolen and then shipped and then stripped of an identity. My love letter would expose the ugly, because honestly speaking, when I think of legacy, I think of history, and historically speaking, legacy hasn't always been so easy or simple for those of us in my community. But my love letter is resilient. My love letter says no to massa and is beaten because of it. My love letter makes collard greens and hot water cornbread. My love letter turns scraps into delicious recipes that will make you salivate. Like this one stew, oh my gosh, my love letter makes this one stew that fills your nose with delicious scents. Oh, and my love letter burns incense. And my love letter makes dollars out of cents. And sometimes it feels like my love letter just don't got no sense. And my love letter, oh, my love letter clips food stamps and gathers my brothers and takes them to go to the supermarket. My love letter has complicated roots. Like when people ask me what my background is and I say I'm African American, I'm black, and they say like, no, where's your family from? And I say Queens and the Bronx, and they look at me funny. And then I look at them strange and I bite my tongue and refrain from saying that I don't know. My ancestors were stolen and displaced, but New York has always been my home. My love letter has complicated roots, but I'm patient enough with myself to sort and comb them through. If I had to write a love letter to my legacy, it would contain all of the vibes. And it would contain affirmations like you can do anything that you put your mind to when you are already enough and you are deserving and you are smart and you are talented and you are a light in the lives of others and you are walking in alignment and everything will work out in your favor because everything always works out in your favor and you are going through nothing, but you are growing through everything like a rose out of concrete, and your past doesn't define your future, and your life matters. Like your life matters, and your light matters, and you shine so bright, baby. You're a star, and the world is a better place because you're in it. So keep going. My legacy is love. My legacy is generosity. My legacy is family because everywhere I go, I be finding family. If I had to write a love letter to my legacy, it would sound something like that.
Beautiful, beautiful. It takes me back to my own poetry days. It's been a while. Maybe I need to get the
Yeah.
pen and paper and get back into it. Oh, you got me all hype. All right. Well, thank you so much for that poem. Thank you for that words of wisdom. And
Yes,
now let's get to your promo.
yes,
All right,
yes.
you guys. So, Andrea, there's a lot of yellow going on today on the screen. All right, so
It looks nice. So much yellow.
there's so much yellow.
We got the memo.
Change the color a little bit, but okay, is that better? Okay. Oh, should we go back to the yellow? All right. Does it matter? All
It
right.
doesn't. I like it all. I'm here for it all.
Yeah, hear it all right, all right. All right. All right. So I just changed the color to blue. But well, either way, I encourage people to seek you out and to find you. All right, so you guys, Andrea Augustus, she is all over that social media and she has a website and it's just her name,
Yeah.
andreaaugustus.com. So if you want to learn more about her, you want to learn more about her business, you want to know who is this girl that just spit some bars, go to her website, www.andreaaugustus.com. You can
Yeah.
also find her on her Facebook profile. Her personal profile is just andrea.augustus.16. You could find her on Instagram, her Facebook business page, and Twitter. It is all just Poetic Black Gurl. So that's girl as in GURL. And she is also on LinkedIn, which is just her name, Andrea Augustus. So go to all of her social media accounts and follow her. She, again, so has two Facebook. So she has a Facebook personal profile, which is her name, Andrea Augustus 16, and her business page, which is Poetic Black Gurl, and also the same on Instagram and Twitter, Poetic Black Gurl. And you could find her on LinkedIn, which is just her name. And once again, her website is www.andreakaugustus.com. So all of that information is scrolling below at the bottom of your screen if you happen to be watching this on video right now. But if you're listening to this on audio, I did not forget about you. All of this information is in the description. So I encourage you to check it out. So, Andrea, is there anything else you want to share about your business or anything you want
Um,
to share? Anything you want to promote?
yes, sure. On I don't know when this is going to air, hopefully before this date, but on December 10th, I'm hosting a writing workshop, open mic and networking event. So it's a 3-hour event. First hour is a networking event. The second hour is a writing workshop. And the third hour is going to be an open mic. And that's going to be in the Bronx at this restaurant called Brunch at Zion's. Limited RSVP. So if you are following a Step Ahead tutoring services, make sure you go ahead and connect with me. The link is in my bio. And yeah, just stay tuned for community writing events, community poetry events, and all that jazz. And yes, all
All
that.
right. So there you go. There you go. So that's that. Wait, you have to go. That's a physical place that people are going to
Yep, it's a physical event, and it's in the Bronx at Brunch at Zion's. And the information to sign up is going to be in the link in my Instagram bio. It says the Healing Hour. It's called the Healing Hour. Yeah.
All right, so there you go. So for my fellow New Yorkers, or yeah, New Yorkers, if you're in the Bronx or or you can get to the Bronx, check that out. Go to her Instagram, Poetic Black Gurl, and go to the link in her bio. What's it called?
The Healing Hour.
The Healing Hour. So check that out, and that's happening December 10th.
Yep.
2022. I'm just gonna throw that year in, but December 10th, if you have the time, go check that out. And I encourage you guys to just any events that she has, whenever you're watching this, stay in touch with Andrea, stay tuned, follow her. All these good things are coming up, and stay in touch with her and stay in touch with her calendar. Just stay in touch
Yes.
with her. Follow
Yes,
her.
especially entrepreneurs. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, because I know you have a following of entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So specifically for entrepreneurs, I'm a part of this cohort program called Communitas America, and they offer a lot of really dope resources for entrepreneurs. It is a free cohort like mentorship program. So uh, uh, stay tuned because I'm a part of cohort number 9, and you can be a part of cohort number 10 when they open it up and applications open. And I promise it is like a great, great opportunity to work on business development and to network. So yes, entrepreneurs, we know how it is.
It's hard out there. You gotta hustle. But yes, there you go. So now, entrepreneurs, if you just heard what she said, you have a next reason to follow her and stay in touch with her. So again, she is on Facebook, whether it's personal or business. She's also on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And you can go to her website, www.andreakaugustus.com. All of this information is at your fingertips. So whether you are looking at the bottom of your screen or you just heard me say the information on audio, it's in the description. So there's no excuse, you guys. So whether it's on audio or video, all of this information is available to you one way or another. So check her out. All right, Andrea, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. You wrapped that up. Yes. The promo, you did that. Yes. I'm a big supporter. So
Thank
thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let me
Yes.
take you backstage. All right, and now it is just you and me, guys. All right, so we're still rocking the blue theme, but that's all right. All right, so you guys, we have reached the conclusion of yet another episode here on Hot Topics. I believe we've made it to what episode is this? I think it's 167. I want to say it's 167, so somewhere around there. So we have made it to yet another episode. Thank you so much for joining me on this ride. So whether you've been with me this whole time or you are brand new to the game, thank you for joining me today. So I just want to remind you guys that Hot Topics is a production of my company, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So, if you are looking for a tutor, whether it's for your child or even for yourself, because we do work with adults, reach out to us. If you are looking for homework help, one on one, test prep, if you are looking for any of that, oh, we got a heart emoji, yay. So if you are looking for any of those services, reach out to us. Our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You can call us at 347-762-2838. You can also email us success@astepaheadtutoringservices.com. And we are also on multiple social media sites. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, WhatsApp, and Eventbrite. Yes, I'm trying to remember it all. So check us out on all of those social media platforms, and you can reach out to us those ways as well. And I also encourage you to follow us as well while you're at it. But yes, there are many ways that you could find us. So if you are looking for any kind of tutoring service, one-on-one tutoring, test prep, college counseling, resume review, if you're looking for any of those services, we do work with children and adults. Reach out to us. The website again, www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. And I also encourage you guys to leave your feedback about this episode. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Just drop a comment in the comment section or in the comment thread. Or if you're, if you're listening on audio, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or iHeartRadio or Spreaker, drop a rating. Let us know what you thought about this episode. Drop a rating, leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about this episode. Ooh, I definitely want to hear your feedback and read your feedback as well. So, whether you're watching this on video, on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook, or you're listening on audio like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, let us know your thoughts. Drop a comment, drop a rating. Let us know what you thought about this episode. I definitely will appreciate your feedback. And I'm also going to give you guys before I get to my challenge, I just want to share this last thing. Hot Topics has a text blast. I encourage you to get on it. So to get on that text blast, just text the code Hot Topics to 917 764 3975. Again, just text the code Hot Topics to 917 764 3975 to get on that text blast. You will have alerts about the audio releases, live live recordings, anything and everything that has to do with Hot Topics. You will learn about that on the text blast. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. And my challenge to you, I want you to share this episode with at least two of your friends, right? So that is my challenge to you guys. I want you to call somebody right now. I want you to call two people right now and say, "Hey, I heard about this episode with Poetic Black Girl, just check it out, girl, or dude, whatever. So that is my challenge to you. I want you to pick 2 friends and share this episode with at least 2 friends. I encourage you to take that challenge today. All right, you guys, and that is it. I thank you so much for joining me today. Please join us at the next episode. And now I am signing off.